Good day, everyone. We're going to discuss our assigned topic, which is all about language shift in different communities and language death and language loss. Before we fully dive in, let's first define what language shift means. Language shift refers to the process in which a speech community transitions from using one language to adopting another, often due to socioeconomic, political, or cultural influences. This phenomenon can lead to language endangerment or even extinction if the original language is not maintained by younger generations. Understanding language shift helps highlight the importance of preserving linguistic diversity and the cultural heritage it embodies. Now, let's proceed to language shift in different communities. We have three communities, namely indigenous, immigrant, and urban versus rural communities. Let's tackle first the indigenous communities. Indigenous communities often experience language shift due to colonization, economic pressures, and social influences. When colonizers arrive, their language often replaces indigenous languages, making the native language less used. People may also switch to the dominant language to get better jobs and education. For example, some Filipino families who migrated to cities for better opportunities often choose to speak English with their children, as English is the language of instruction in schools and is often required for higher paying jobs. In addition, the dominant language is often seen as more prestigious, which can make indigenous languages seem less important. For example, in the Philippines, the adoption of English and Filipino as the primary languages in education and government has led to a decline in the use of many indigenous languages. Next point, we have the immigrant communities. Immigrant communities may experience language shift due to integration pressures, loss of intergenerational transmission, and practical needs. They may feel strong to pressure to adopt the dominant language to fit into society, communicate with others, and find better job opportunities. This need to belong can make them use their heritage language less. If parents do not teach their children to their native language, it can disappear within a few generations. Also, the dominant language becomes necessary for daily life, such as school, work, and accessing services. So for immigrant communities, the pressure to adapt to a new culture can lead to a decline in the use of their native language, which makes it harder to keep their heritage alive. And lastly, the urban versus rural communities. Language shift happens differently in urban and rural communities. In cities, people are more exposed to the dominant language and face stronger social and economic pressures to use it, leading to a faster shift. In contrast, rural areas tend to preserve indigenous languages better because communities are more isolated and have stronger cultural connections to their native language. Basically, language shift happens faster in cities because people are more likely to switch to the dominant language for better opportunities. While in rural areas, people tend to hold onto their native languages because they're more connected to their culture and traditions. This means that language shift is influenced by where people lived.
Now let's proceed to the consequences of language shift. First, we have the language endangerment. If people stop using their native language, it can become rare and may even disappear. Then, we have cultural loss. Language is an important part of a group's identity. If a language disappears, valuable traditions, stories, and knowledge can be lost. Then, we have social changes. When people stop using their native language, relationships and community structures may change, affecting traditions and ways of life. We must take note that language shift affects not just individuals, but also entire communities, reducing linguistic and cultural diversity. Understanding why language shift happens can help protect languages from disappearing. Keeping languages alive helps preserve history, knowledge, and cultural identity. Now, let's proceed to the language death and loss. Language death. It is when the last native speaker of a language dies. The language is lost forever because no one speaks it anymore. However, language loss. This happens when individuals or communities stop using their native language, even if some people still understand it. If a language is not passed on, it may eventually die out.
There are several causes of language death. One major cause is language shift, which happens when a community completely shifts to another language. Another cause is lack of intergenerational transmission. This occurs when parents do not pass their language on to their children. Without new speakers, a language gradually disappears. Natural disasters can also lead to language death. Disasters like earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions can wipe out entire communities, taking their languages with them. Genocide and war are also significant factors. These events can lead to the deliberate suppression or eradication of languages, either by destroying the speakers or forcing them to adopt another language. Now, let's talk about the impact of language death on language loss. So, language death has serious effects on communities and the world. One major impact is the loss of cultural heritage. Languages are deeply connected to culture, and when a language disappears, so does the unique identity, traditions, and knowledge of people. Another impact is the loss of biodiversity. Linguistic diversity is part of the world's biodiversity, and its loss can have serious ecological and cultural consequences. Additionally, social and economic inequalities can worsen due to language loss. People who lose their heritage language may have fewer opportunities, affecting their education, jobs, and social status. But the question is, how can we address language loss? So, to address this issue, language revitalization programs play a key role. These programs aim to revive endangered languages through education, media, and community-based efforts. Another important step is documenting endangered languages. This includes creating dictionaries, grammars, and other resources to preserve linguistic knowledge for future generations. We must also raise awareness about the importance of linguistic diversity and the dangers of language loss. Educating the public can inspire action and support for endangered languages. Lastly, government support is essential. Providing financial and political backing for language revitalization efforts can help protect and restore disappearing languages. In summary, Language death is a serious issue that leads to the complete extinction of a language. When a language is lost, we also lose cultural heritage, biodiversity, and social and economic opportunities. However, we can take action to address language loss through revitalization programs, documentation, public awareness, and government support. Let us all recognize the value of linguistic diversity and work together to preserve the world's languages before they disappear forever. I hope this discussion has helped you understand the importance of protecting endangered languages.